Hi everyone and welcome back to our daily blog series. Today we are looking at the reliable and wicked slaves and the topic of slaves and their masters. And today in particular we're looking at that faithful or unfaithful nature of slaves and that topic in itself. So in particular, we're looking at Matthew chapter 24, verses 45 to 51, which says about, "Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household, to give their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked, and says to himself, 'My master is staying away a long time,' and he then begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So I think this passage in Matthew really shows about how when we, perhaps as Christians, we're faithful to God. So when we're, if we look at it from that angle, so if we're faithful to God, we are doing everything within the law. And I guess almost think about, for example, the Beatitudes or the Ten Commandments, all of these almost rules or laws that have been placed within tradition and Christian tradition. Actually, it shows almost like the morals and what the values are of being Christian and when we are dedicated to Christ. So I think this passage also really shows how almost like the consequences. So like when we're wicked, or perhaps again we're sinners and we're constantly looking for forgiveness, I guess, even if we don't always admit our wrongdoings. And yeah, I think this really shows, particularly 48 to the end, verse 51 in Matthew 24. It really shows the consequences of when we're not faithful to our masters. So perhaps we're going behind their back and not, they've put trust in us, but we're basically disobeying their trust. So I think it really shows the consequences of what sinning is, but also when we're not being true to God, but also I guess true to ourselves and what it truly means to be a Christian. Another great gospel actually, which looks at this idea of reliable and wicked slaves and when we are faithful or unfaithful, is Luke chapter 12 verses 42 to 48. So it says how the Lord answered, "Who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. Truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose the servant says to himself, 'My master has taken a long time in coming,' and he then begins to beat the other servants, both men and women, and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him into pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers." So I think again, like those verses, Luke 12, 42 to 46 there, that really shows almost again what we saw in Matthew, but we're kind of getting the same scenario in Luke, and how when you're being put in charge, or I guess like when, I don't know, maybe at work or within a sports team or something, like when you've been put in charge of something, you've got that responsibility and like you've obviously been chosen to lead people, and almost like when you aren't obeying the person in charge, or yourself as the leader perhaps isn't showing like leader skills and perhaps isn't living up to what a leader should be or what we expect of a leader, it kind of again shows the consequences of when we're being disrespectful or I guess almost unfaithful to our employer, or when we're not aware of or believe in our like manager's capabilities and things like that. So actually when you put it into context, into everyday life, it is almost like when you're at work and perhaps you want to do something within your work, but it's not really in line with what you're supposed to be doing. And actually it's almost that idea again of being faithful or unfaithful, but sometimes it's almost like obeying the rules or disobeying the rules. I see it. And then verses 47 to 48 in Luke 12 say again how the servant who knows the master's will and does not get ready or does not do what the master wants will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. So it's all about trust, and when we're showing what our true capabilities and who we are as individuals, we're going to be rewarded so much greatly for when we're not putting our full commitment into something.